Coach Tony.
Hey, folks, we are back, and we are joined this morning by what I firmly believe, and I've said it over and over, is the best of the best when it comes to training young baseball and softball players. I'm talking, of course, about Dan Gray, owner and proprietor of Pro Swing Baseball and Softball Training Centers here in Westchester County. And we're talking today about the subtleties of the relationship between the parent, the athlete, the school, travel, or summer coach, and that private instructor who is unfortunately getting a bad rap these days. We got a ton of emails here, but before we get back to your emails, we're going to start taking some of your calls. In fact, I believe our friend Kirk from Chicago is on the line. Hey, Kirk, you're on Let Them Play, buddy.
Hey, how you doing? Good to hear you.
I am great. Long time no talk.
Yeah.
So listen, me and Dan kind of warmed everything up with this whole idea of the private instructors. What do you think of this? Got any questions for us?
Well, we deal with this all the time in the high schools, and my suggestion to coaches goes right along the lines of things that you've already talked about, and that is the communication piece is essential. Without it, you're going to have issues. And what I suggest is that those coaches in those sports that have outside influences like that, to get involved in them. That tends to help the issue out a lot, and that makes it easier for you to communicate with what's going on. So as a baseball coach, during your off season, your off high school season, to get involved coaching where most of your kids are participating. That not only will benefit you as a coach, it'll benefit the program you're involved in.
That's an interesting point. Now, Dan, I never asked you about this. Let's say, for example, I'm the coach of, Tony Fiorino Memorial High School in Yonkers, and some of my kids go to Pro Swing. Is there any kind of an evolution going on where, as the coach, I say, hey, listen, you got some of my kids. I want to bring some more of them down, and I want to kind of get involved in the process so I learn what you're doing so we make it all better? How much of that's going on?
Yeah, we've done that over the past few years, Tony. That's an excellent point. We've had Iona Prep, Fordham Prep, some of the local coaches up by us. We do an off-season training initiative where we have most of the, better high school kids, ranging from freshman year to senior year, where I've had the coaches contact me. They've come up. They've watched their kids in the program, and it's basic stuff. We talked about, you and I being old school guys. This is about a lot of hitting, pitching, defense, strength and conditioning, SQA, and again, we have them 3 times a week, and we run that program from the end of November until they start with their school ball.
SQA, by the way, speed, quickness, and agility. I know it because I'm a disciple of Danny and his guys, and it is a great program. I'm sorry.
And so you have that the physical component, and then we try to work through the mental part of the game. And I have people like life coaches and people that are trained in working on the confidence and the focus and the commitment needed. But the point, talking about what Kirk was saying, we have these coaches come up, and really the crux of why they come up is to try to stay consistent with the verbiage, so that if I'm working with TJ and TJ's going to Fiorino High School, the stuff that he's hearing for 3 months from me, the coach will come up and we'll try to be somewhat symbiotic in the way that we're talking to him about his technique. So, because the biggest problem is, as you know from being a coach and a parent through this, is confusing the player.
Yeah, there's a whole level of consistency. And one of the things I'm curious about with this new equation with the high school coaches or the summer coaches getting involved is how much ego is there. Because, I know there are coaches who still think, make sure your back elbow is all the way up. And you and I both know that nothing could be further from the truth. Do you find a whole lot of ego with some of these coaches?
I think that
not Bernie Mahoney and those guys. Bernie, if you're listening, my Iona Prep buddy. But there are coaches who really don't know what they're talking about, and I find those are the guys who have the biggest egos and are the least receptive to guys like you who live and breathe this every day, not in between teaching math class. And there are things that change when it comes to training a kid, and you stay up on it. I would think some of these idiots with the egos might be better served shutting their mouth and saying, okay, I can go to school on Dan Gray, who's learning all the newest components of training and mechanics. I might learn something. How much of that ego gets in the way?
I think that, again, going back to to what Kirk and even Sal's email is, you have to be able to communicate. You have to gain trust and on both sides. Again, you knowing me a long time, I've never claimed that I know everything about the game. I think it's a game where you're consistently learning, even from an instructor or a teaching perspective, not just from a playing perspective. So I try to always take in the information that other coaches give me, and I'm learning constantly from our players. So I think that as long as you're receptive to what people are saying to you, and you're also training your players to be receptive and take in information that they can use and kind of funnel out that information respectfully that they don't feel is going to be efficient for them, then you can keep that relationship as a positive relationship. Because again, what it comes down to, Tony, like you said with egos, it's not about us. It's about the player. It's about the player getting better. It's about the player maximizing his ability. So egos have to be set aside. And again, everybody has to be on the same page.
Yeah, and even you talked about some of the things that a kid may say, that doesn't work for me. You know, you and I both know there are times when something is mechanically perfectly sound, but if a kid doesn't have it straight in his head, it's just not going to work.
That's correct.
Hey, Kirk, that's a great point. Anything else before I let you go, buddy?
Yeah, I just think that, as long as the idea of the athlete is in mind when you're walking into this, you will be open-minded to work with the club coaches. When they, this thing about ego, I mean, that really hurts because it's not about you. And those that walk in with that idea that they're there for the kid will be open-minded enough to take any expertise that they get and help, that will make them a better coach. Some of the high school coaches are not willing to do that, and I question their integrity with where they are at. Because if you're expecting your kids to dedicate and work hard to become better players, then you as a coach must set that example as well, and in doing so, help that athlete. It's got to be about the athlete, and you guys said a lot about that. So thanks for letting me call in.
Absolutely, Kirk. It's always a pleasure to hear from you, buddy. And I think there's a kind of a flow over here. There are a lot of egos, and like I said, I find the more accomplished a coach is, the less ego they tend to have. And it trickles all the way down to, the guys in youth sports, the dads who coach. We talked about this, I think it was just 2 weeks ago. We talked about how some of the problems with dad coaches or mom coaches is that they look at their kid as a reflection of them and the team's performance as a reflection of themselves as a coach, when, think about it, nobody cares about the coach except the coaches who have the ego. So, Kirk, that was a great point. I don't want to get into a whole separate discussion before we go to break. I'm going to take an early break, and then we're going to get back to your emails, and we're going to get to your phone calls. Studio lines again, 914-693-5700. But before we go to break, listen, folks, the show ends right around 10 a.m., right? And I'm sure you got some things to do, some errands to run, maybe a game or two to check out. But make sure you go grab a terrific lunch or dinner today at Somers 202 Tavern. There's always something good going on at Somers 202, which is located, right on Route 202 in Somers. But give them a call today at 914-248-8100 and make your reservation today. You can sit in their really classy dining room for an elegant dining experience, or you can just grab a stool in the bar area and watch the game on one of their big flat screen TVs. Somers 202 is a place your whole family's going to love. So go see my buddy Joe Maz and make sure you tell him Coach Tony sent you. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.